In this video, we're going to talk about reviewing some Apache logs and using different Linux command line tools in order to filter through those logs and identify the information we might be looking for. So here I have a CentOS 7 workstation, and the first thing I might need for this particular scenario is an Apache log file. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to Google for these files. And the Apache log files are a fairly standard format that we can use, and a lot of people have allowed them to be online for various reasons. Most commonly for just educational purposes. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to google.com. And I'm going to search for what's called an access log file. There's a special way that we can do this, specifically with Google, is we can do a in URL access.log, which means in the URL path for a website, look for access.log, and then file type :log, which means look in the path, in the URL path up here for access.log, and then specifically look for a log file of type log. Let's see, looking through here, there's a couple of them. This guy right here, github.com/Linux Academy, that looks like a good one to be able to use. It says it's about 2.26 megabytes in size, and if I click download, it doesn't actually download, it just shows the file. But you can actually see up here in the in the URL here is access.log, and it is a file type of .log. So what I want to do is I want to go ahead and save this. So I'm just going to right click, save page as. It's saving into my downloads file, name of access log. That's fine. I'll just go ahead and save that as is. Now the next thing I want to do while I'm here on the browser is I want to look into the Apache log file format. There's a lot of different log file formats out there. The Apache web server files are one that's fairly common. See this one, httpd.apache.org. That's probably about as official as I'm going to get. And there's a couple of log files. There's an error log, obviously for the errors in the log file. And then there's an access log file. Make this a little bigger here. And it says, hey, there's a common format right here that has fillers right here, %H, %L, %U, %T. Each of these means something specific. So as we look further down, we see an example right here of a line from an Apache log file. 127.001 - Frank, and then what looks like a time, something inside some quotes, the number 200 and 2326, and it describes it right down here. First item in here, which would be the %H that we saw up above right here. %H is the IP address of the client. So in this case, 127.001 is the remote client. We also know 127.001 is the local host, so that means that the local machine is browsing the website. The next is a dash, which just says, hey, this is what you'll see if you don't see anything else. And so we can actually see that right there. There's a dash, not a problem. Next column is Frank, or the %U from the example up above, which is the user ID of the person requesting the document. So if your website is requiring somebody to authenticate themselves, it will list their user ID. After that, %T looks like it is the date and time, and it specifically says, yes, this is the time the server finished processing the request. Interesting that they make the distinction as when it finished as opposed to started. Then had some stuff in some quotes here, which is the request line that the client is giving. So in this case up here we have httpd.apache.org/docs/1.3/logs.html. In this case, the request line would be /docs/1.3/logs.html. So that's the actual URL that it's sent to, not the fully qualified URL, but the URL nonetheless. Percent greater than S, this is the status code that is sent back to the client. 200, as the example is right here, is a perfectly fine message. That's 200 means okay. So that means that the web page was requested and it worked properly. You can contrast this to some of the other error codes, such as 404 you've probably seen before. 404, page not found, or there's a 401, authentication required, 405, unauthorized, something like that. See, there is a full list. Actually, we'll open that up. And then lastly was this number right here, 2326, which is the size of the object returned. So if this was a picture that I was downloading, then it would be however big the picture was. If it's a web page, it's however many bytes are in that web page. If there's no value, then it would be dash, or if it was too big. No, just if, yeah. Really quick, the error codes, 100, 102, 200, okay. We then get into the 4 and 500s. There you go, client error, 400, bad request, unauthorized, forbidden, not found, and you'll get to know some of these as you move forward. All right, so that is the standard or the common log format. There is also what's called an Apache combined log format. So while the common log format was that right there that's highlighted, the combined format includes a referrer and a user agent. So if we continue on here, see, that right there was the prior common format. We now have the referrer right here. So there's 2 additional fields. This guy, refer. It's the website that has referred us to this website. So in this case, they started at example.com/start.html and then went to apachepb.gif. So it's what website referred them to the content you're currently requesting. And then lastly is the user agent. And when you browse a website, your web browser will send out several bits of information about your user agent, what client operating system you're running, what web application you're running, what version of web browser you're running, and so on. So all of this information is what we're going to be seeing when we look at our log file. And in fact, if we go ahead and open up our log file here, I'll go ahead and open a terminal. I'll go into my downloads folder since that's where I downloaded the file, which I can see right there, access.log. And if I do a head-n1, so I only see the very first line of the access log, then I can start seeing the line that looks very familiar to the log file we were just looking at. Starting off with an IP address, we have a date, we have a GET request, a status code, file size, the referrer, and then the web client. So now that we've seen this, and now that we know exactly what all of those files are, or all those fields are, now we can start looking into this information to get more specific about what our sites are doing. For instance, right here we have one IP address. How many IP addresses have I started getting against, or am I getting accessing my web server? So now I can start doing some analysis on that. First thing I want to do is I want to start looking at that. So if I want to cat my access log, this is obviously going to spit out a whole bunch of information. I only want to see the very first column. That very first column holds the IP address, so I want to use some of the Linux commands such as cut in order to filter just that one column. In this case, I'm going to cut -F1, F for field, and the number 1. So that should give me this right here. Actually, if I do a cut --help, it gives me lots of information about how to use cut. Basically, it's just cut with a whole bunch of options. And here I have -B for bytes. Which bytes do I want to see? -C for characters, -D for delimiter, and -F for fields. So which fields do I want to see? I could do a -S, a -N, and lots of different options here. I want to see just the very first field. My assumption is that, let's see, it sees tab for a field delimiter. My assumption is that the space between the IP address up here and that dash is going to be recognized as a delimiter. So if I say just give me the first field, it should just give me the IP address. Well, let's try that actually. So cat access log, and then I want to pipe that. That's the shift and the backspace key. So right above the enter key, hold down shift and hit that key right there. That gives you the pipe command. Cut -F1. The pipe command, really quick, takes the output of the first command, in this case the contents of the access log, and makes it the input of the next command. So it takes the output of cat and pipes it into the input of cut. So let's go ahead and give this a shot. Ooh, almost. That didn't quite work, did it? What we need to do is we need to tell it, hey, this field right here, this space is what we need to see as a delimiter. So let's try that one more time. There was another switch in there, which was -D for delimiter. What do I want to be my delimiter? How do I want to delineate one field from another? In this case, I want it to be a space. I put that in quotes just so I can specify, yes, there is a space between those quotes for you to pay attention to. There's other ways I could have done it. This seems to be the most consistent and easiest way to understand. So now if I hit enter, there we go. Now I'm able to see just the first column in my access. I can see there's a whole bunch of access from this one IP address and a little bit of access from other people. Ooh, there we go. A whole lot of access from this guy. Now, this list isn't necessarily very useful in this case. Maybe I should do some other commands in order to maybe sort this information and identify how unique it is. So there we did the cut command, and that helped filter down our information a whole lot more. Maybe I just want to see what unique IP addresses there have been. What clients have actually talked to my system. And in order to do that, I can do a couple of different things. First, I might want to do a sort command. The sort command will literally sort everything that I just had. So if I run this now, we'll see that it is pretty much alphabetically sorted. Going down to 94, 93, and so on. So the sort command helps me sort that out. Once I've done sort, I can then do another pipe and run a command called uniq. Uniq will literally look for unique strings. So what happens is when it sees a line, it looks at the line above it and looks at the line below it and says, is this a unique line or not? If it's a unique line, it will write it out. If it isn't, then it won't write it out. So now if I run it, now my list of IP addresses has shrunk. There's still quite a few in there, but they are all unique IP addresses. There's no duplication of any of these. Ooh, that's a lot of IP addresses. So there we go. Now I can see all of the IP addresses that might have been in my, or might have accessed my environment. So the next thing I might want to do with that, now that I know the unique IP addresses in my environment, is maybe I want to start figuring out which of them are the most common. Which systems are accessing my system most frequently? I already have sorted, I've uniqued them, but now I want to know how many times did one system access my environment? How many times how popular is that client in my environment? So in order to find out the count of the systems or of the unique IP addresses in my environment, I might want to look at this uniq command. So I'm going to cancel this command right here, just Control C, and I'm going to do a uniq -- help in order to find the various options that are there for the uniq command. And if we look through here and see, with no options, matching lines are merged on the first occurrence. So by default, it looks through and it finds the unique occurrences and then discards everything else. There are some additional options such as -C in order to count. And so this will help prefix the lines by the number of occurrences. It will tell me how many times a specific line has shown up. That might just be what I'm looking for. I want to know how many times a specific IP address has accessed my server. -C may be everything that I want. Looking through here really quick, let's see, I've got -D only print duplicate lines. So therefore, if something only shows up once, it won't show up in the output here. Let's see, look for fields. Ignore the case. So maybe I have a situation where I have things both uppercase and lowercase. -I will ignore that and treat them as the same. Skip specific characters. Unique, 0 terminated. Yeah, I'm thinking the -C right here is everything that I need. So now if I rerun that command with a -C at the very end, it should help me see how many IPs are accessing my environment and how often those specific IPs are accessing my environment. And there I can see, well, right here, 99.188.185.40 accessed my environment a whole one time. However, 99.252.100.83 has accessed it 26 times. Wow, that's great. And if I keep scrolling up, how high up do I go? Let's scroll all the way up. There we go. I just wanted to see if there were any headers up here. It doesn't look like there is. We just simply start off with the count and then the IP address. What I want to do now is I actually want to start sorting this by the count. So right now it's currently sorted based off of IP address, 100 to 101 to 103. I want to actually change the sort in order to be the IP address or the count of the number of the systems. So let's see if another sort will do that for me. Kind of. It's sorting it by 9 as opposed to 99. 82, 83, 74. Let's see if there's anything in the hundreds. All right. Well, so there we go. So we've gotten a way to be able to start finding out how many times our system has been accessed from different clients. So now we can start seeing who is the most popular clients in our environment, and we can easily start presenting a report to our boss saying, hey, here's the IP address that is accessing our site the most. Now, if I see a situation where I've got, 9, 10, 20 access times for most of my environment, and then suddenly I see an environment or one IP address that has like 5,000 times accessing my environment, then maybe that tells me that something might be wrong with that IP address. Maybe somebody's trying to hack into my system, or maybe it's a proxy server that some other system is using, like a large company is using in order to access my environment. So it can mean lots of different things. It may mean you want to look into it. It may be perfectly normal. So we've gone ahead and we've tried to find the most popular clients. I'm pretty sure if I had looked through the help files here for sort, we could have started to find a better way to be able to start sorting the information so that we're looking at those specific columns for the count and treating them properly. We'll deal with that at a later date. All right, so the next thing I might want to look at is the most popular pages. So again, let's look at just the first line on there. And remember, we've got these first couple of sections, IP addresses, user, time, and then finally this get statement will say which page was accessed. So if I wanted to find the most popular pages, that right there that's highlighted is probably what I'm looking for. So let's start working with that. Let's start filtering out what we're looking for there. Now, previously I'd said go ahead and filter based on space, which was right there and there and there. But then we also have a space right here. Oops. And a space right here. And now a space here and here. And I might be able to get this to work with spaces, but I'm actually going to start looking at the quotes. Just because that's something that's not as common in this environment. If I start looking at the quotes, then I can start filtering more specifically for what I'm looking for in those quotes. So let's cat that again, access log. And this time let's cut -D. And this is where things get interesting. I'm going to do a single quote, double quote, single quote. The double quotes means look inside of these single quotes for the delimiter, and then the double quote inside means this is the delimiter. I could have done this the other way if I was looking, for instance, up here in the log file. If this was a single quote, I could have done a double, single, double. But because in the log file it's a double quote, I need to do a single, double, single. And I could have done other things. I could have done like a backslash quote, things like that, but that should work. And then field in this case should be field 2, 1, I believe. I think we start counting at 0. So field 0 is this right here. And then field 1 should be that. And then field 2 and field 3. Yeah. So let's actually run that and see if that's giving me the right information back. Nope, that's giving me the other information. So let's try that again with field 2. There we go. So I was wrong. I needed it to be field 2. Apparently the fields start at 1 instead of 0. Okay, so I now have a list of all the pages in my site that are being accessed. Now I want to trim this up a little bit more. I don't want this get in front of it. I don't want this HTTP 1.1 at the end of it. So now I'm going to actually pipe this through another cut command. This time with the delimiter of being a space. So at the space, I want that right there. And then I want to drop off everything before that and after that. So I can use the spaces, and then again, field looks like field 2, since field 1 would be the get command. Field 3 would be the HTTP 1.1. So let's run it again. Let's make sure it's giving me what I'm looking for. That's looking great. And now we want to start finding the most popular versions of that. So let's go ahead and sort that. We have to sort it before we can do a unique. There we go. And then finally a unique -C, which will also give me the count, page count. And we can start seeing, ooh, right there. Style2.css has been accessed 546 times. Now, CSS file is a formatting file, so it's not necessarily a popular page. It is a resource. However, we can keep looking up here. Robots.txt, again, it's a resource. Reset.css, another resource. 224, pointing to XDO tool. Let's see if there's anything higher than that. All right, looking like that might be about it. Oh, there we go. 533, and we'll leave it right here at images/jordan80.png. So that means that one PNG file, wherever it is on the internet, has been accessed 533 times during the period of this log file. So again, I could sort this and I could start filtering out or start ordering it better in order to make it in order to make the order a whole lot easier to read. However, it should be pretty easy to understand at this point exactly how we're piping these together in order to make more complex commands. So there we go. We've got the most common client. We've got the most popular web pages. Let's look to see what else there is. Again, looking at the top line there, so we've looked at the IP address. We're not necessarily going to worry too much about the date and time, especially since this is 4 years old. We've got the most commonly accessed resources. Ooh. Item number, or return error code, message code. So right here, the message code is 200. So 200 means everything is okay. Let's see what we have as far as where things aren't okay. So let's go ahead and cat that file again. And this time let's pipe that into grep. Actually, before I do that, grep -- help will give us what we're looking for. There is a grep option right here, -v for invert match. Now you've probably used grep before. Grep, so actually tell me, I believe it stands for generic regular expression parser, or grep, or general regex parser. What that does is it looks for a string. So for instance, if I look for logstash, cat access pipe grep logstash, it looks through that command or through the output and looks for the strings logstash and only shows the commands that say logstash. If I do a -v, it inverts that match and therefore says look for everything that doesn't say logstash. So now if I hit enter, a few things show up, but none of them say logstash. So what I want to do is I want to go ahead and do that. I want to do a grep -v, and I want to look for everything that doesn't have 200 status code in its return. So 200 means everything's okay. Now I want to start looking for things that aren't okay. This could be potential error messages. Let's see. For instance, right here, catching my eye, I have a 206. I don't know what a 206 means. Let's go and look at the HTTP status codes. (206) partial content. All right, so that means part of the content is returned. I don't think that's necessarily bad. Let's see if we got anything else in here. 304, there we go. Now I see a 304. What is 304? Let's scroll down. 304 not modified. So if the client has performed a get, there we go, a conditional get request. Conditional get request means access this only if it has changed since the last time I've used it. So for instance, date unless, yeah. So not modified means that nothing has changed since the last time you accessed this web page or this file, therefore don't download it again. Let's see. I actually want to start looking for something in the 400 range. Specifically like 404. We all know about 404, error page not found. Let's see if there's any 404 messages in there. Ooh, there are a lot of 404 messages. Now, if you're a web server administrator, you don't want people to be accessing or getting 404 error messages. For instance, right here, they are trying to access a file called files logstash132-monolithic.jar. Maybe that file's supposed to be there. You just didn't know it. Somehow it got referenced, you forgot about it, it accidentally got deleted. So looking through the 404 messages, now you can start seeing, oh, that file needs to be there. Now that I've done this, I can start combining this with those other commands that I've been doing before, such as cut -d, and let's look for the double quotes, -f2. And now I can start seeing all the errors that were popping up that were causing 404 errors. There we go. And now I can start saying, ooh, right there, we've got 61. Perfect. 61 different times. This one particular website has been requested to be accessed, but a 404 error has returned instead. So that should tell me something is wrong. Something's wrong with that file. Maybe the file got deleted. Maybe it was intentionally removed and we can just ignore it. But at least that tells us. We can do the same thing with 500 error messages. Let's see. First off, I believe I could do a 4 ... That will give me all the 400 messages. Oh, that gives me way too much information. Let's see if this works. There we go. So that was only 404 messages. What I did was I made the grep a little bit more specific. I want a space before it. The ... dots mean one character, one of any character, and then a space after. So that means I need to have a space, a 4, 2 additional characters, and a space. So if there were any 401s, 405s, anything like that, that will give me the answers there as well. That does, however, also show up this guy right here, which is a 4.0, which isn't an error code. That's just something else that's in the way. Yeah. So it's not always perfect. Imagine that. We could actually start filtering this out. Actually, I'm curious. Let's start filtering this out into even more. Cut -F-D. Let's look through the quotes. Yeah, so if I'm looking at this line right here, there we go. If I'm looking at the quotes, there we go. -F. Field 1 would be the IP and the timestamp. Field number 2 would be the page we're looking for, and then field number 3 would be this information right here. So if I do field 3, there we go, and then trim that. I could then trim that down. Oh, actually, what I can do is field 3 dash, and it gives me everything after that as well, or just field 3. At this point, I could then start filtering it down and grepping for 400 messages. There you go. All right, so let's look at our file again. Not here. Head. There we go. So we've looked at IP addresses. We've looked at the web pages being accessed. We've looked at the error codes. The size of data being transferred isn't necessarily all that important. Next thing to look at would be, well, this right here, the referrer. Who's accessing my web page? Where are they coming from? Are they coming from my own website? Are they coming from Google? Are they coming from Bing? Who's sending them to my web page? If it's a search engine, then that means maybe I want to optimize my site to work best for that search engine. If it's another third-party site, maybe I want to become really good friends with whoever's documenting things over there so that they send more information to my site. Or maybe it's a site they shouldn't be coming from. Maybe somebody's sending information to me that I don't want. Maybe I'm Apple, and I don't want people coming to me from Bing or something like that. Yeah. So then this would help me identify who's sending it to me so that I can then go and yell at them for sending clients to me. So we can start filtering again for this. Exactly the same way that we searched for the web page or which site was being hit the most often, we can do the same thing for which referrer we're getting. So let's go ahead and filter again. I'm going to filter on the quotes again because I've got field 1, field 2, field 3, and then field 4. So that should give me everything I'm looking for. Oops, except for the typo. There we go. Let's go and sort. and uniq it with a -C. And it tells me all the referrers. Now, because there's so many referrers here from semicomplete.com, I'm assuming this website is from semicomplete.com. That's a huge assumption. I can see that there was one referrer from yandex.ru. So somebody in Russia is sending information to my website. And then this also tells me exactly which web page they were at when they started sending information to me. Same thing for GitHub. Semi-complete. Wow, whole lot of semi-completes. Whole lot of Googles. Whole lot of Google searches are bringing them to them. Yeah, the cool thing about the Google searches is they can actually help me find exactly what they're looking for. For instance, here they're specifically doing a Google search for semicomplete.com, blog, particles, week of Unix tools. I mean, they're specifically looking for my website on Google, so that's not necessarily that exciting. But they would also tell me like a littlemadness.com running Selenium headless. So if I know what Selenium is and why running headless means, then that means that I can start optimizing my website with content having to do with running Selenium headlessly. Yeah. All right. Whew. We're finding lots of interesting information about this website, about where people are coming from, about how to access it. Let's see, I think one more. Yes, the very last one is the agent. Which web browser is accessing my website? For instance, in this very first line here, just head-n1, so the very first line in the access log, this is a Mozilla compatible browser. It could be running on Mac. No, it is running on a Macintosh. So I know that my end user is running a Macintosh operating system with an Intel processor running OS X. And then the specific version 10.9.1. I know that they have specific features such as Apple WebKit 537, whatever that means. Equivalent to Chrome version 32 and Safari version 537. So it gives me a lot of information about what the capabilities of their web browser are. Maybe I want some brand new feature to go onto my website, but that one web feature does not work on Macintosh clients, regardless of what web browser. If I have a lot of clients that are running Macintosh, then that tells me I can't run that feature because my clients can't access it. Same thing, this tells me Chrome version 32. Maybe the feature I want is only available on Chrome version 33. If all of my clients, or a large majority of my clients, are Chrome 32, then I can't use that feature. However, if the feature I want requires Chrome 25 and I see all my clients are running 32, then I'm perfectly fine to go ahead and implement that feature without breaking my client experience. Well, again, let's go ahead and try that. Let's cat access log cut -d. Again, I want to filter on the double quotes since this is in double quotes. Makes it nice and easy. Let's see, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So it looks like I want field number 6. I'm going to run it just like that, just to make sure I'm actually getting the information that I want. There we go. At this point, I could do some additional cuts. For instance, Windows NT 6.1. I can versus iPhone versus the Macintosh that we saw. Now we can start doing some cuts based on spaces? No, based on the open parentheses. -F2, so that should give me from the open parentheses on to there. There we go. And then do another cut, -D, on the close parentheses, -F1, which should just give me the operating system. And so now I can start counting how many of various operating systems are hitting my environment. How many? Ooh, Linux. How many of them are Linux? How many of them are the Google bot? How many of them are Ruby? Ah. All right. Otherwise, let's see what other information we've got in there. Oops. Mozilla 5. Most everything is Mozilla 5 at this point. Apple WebKit and KHTML like Gecko. These are all the features that are available by the browser. You'll see that that was the same. These are the same for the Windows NT clients as well as for the Linux clients and even for the Mac clients. Ooh, interesting. Have one with Yahoo Slurp capabilities, whatever that means. So there you go. Those are some of the great features that you can start seeing there. Pretty much whenever you start looking at these access logs or any logs, this was just the access logs. There's also error logs and a lot of other items in there. There's a lot of information that can be gleaned from this. Who's popular? Who's not popular? Why should I care? How can I draw people to my site? How can I block people from my site? All of this information is here for us to be able to view. Now, if we were specifically concerned only with web tools, there are lots of web log analyzer tools. And there's tons of them out there specifically for Apache as well as for like Windows web server or other web servers out there that give you plenty of this information telling you, there we go, you know, who's visiting my site, when, where they're coming from, what types of users are there, what domains, what countries are they coming from, and then even, you know, refers, what search phrases are they looking for. Yeah, that's really helpful. Sample query 1, sample query 2. This is just sample data, but obviously once you pipe in your own logs there, it can give you all of this great visual information. What we were doing here as an example was using that. However, that can then work for any log file that's on my machine. For instance, I have lots of logs under var log. I could start grepping through some of these logs here. Let's actually do an ls-l. There we go, messages.log, or my messages log. I've got quite a bit of information in there. So var log messages, sudo. And then I can start looking through this and start identifying, okay, well, there's my time. There's the host that's sending it. Here's the service that created the event, and then here's the description of the event. So now I can start looking through this for the specific services, which services are sending alerts. I can start looking for specific codes such as the word error, or starting or stopping, something along those lines. The tools we used we used them specifically against a web server, but they are usable against any type of log file that might be out there.